Hello and welcome to GM Tips. GM Rick here. I know GM Tips. Geez, we're into 92. I've done 90 of these. That's scary. And you guys watch them. I love it. You guys are what makes me want to come back and do more. I'll just be real frank with you. And I love that you guys watch them. I mean, I do. For me, it is the biggest thing in the world to know you guys are watching it. Now, today, and again, I'm going to be looking down because I've got a digital book on this, but we're going to talk a little bit out of Kobold Press's um, campaign ideas. So it's basically out of the Guide to Plots and Campaigns. I, Again, when I bought it, I didn't know if it'd be worthwhile or not, but it really is. From Wolfgang Bauer, who of course is a big deal with Kobold, and some of the other writers, it's pretty amazing stuff. Steve Winter is on the topic that I'm looking at today because I really like this one. He simply titled the chapter Otherworldly Visions. So, what does that mean? Otherworldly visions are visions that are other than of the world you are playing in. So, whatever setting you set them in, whether it's Earth, Golarion, Absalom Station, Faerun, Ghostwalk, uh, Eberron, Dark Suns, Shadowrun universe, Vampire the Requiem, something out of Open Legend where you throw them into some sort of a setting there, Abney Park steampunk setting, whatever setting you set the players in. This is somewhere else other than that. It is the surreal outer world. Monty Cook is coming out with a great new Kickstarter that has to do with that, where there's the real sun. It's under a pale sun, I think it is. You have the real sun in the real world, but there's another layer below that. And that's the otherworldly. The otherworldly is anything that has to do outside of the world that they're playing in. So it could be a plane of existence. It could be an alternate universe, an alternate dimension. It could be a plane or a demi-plane under the plane that they're currently in. This is what this is, and it's a veer from the norm. It's taking people into almost a surreal universe. Chaosium's Call of Cthulhu does a tremendous job of this. There are other titles that are offshoots or other ones. And Zeitgeist is one that you can use for 5e or for um, Pathfinder. That is a real great kind of otherworldly dark steampunk. The world of Shattered that's coming out is under Shattered RPG. The Kickstarter is finally finishing, and they're going to have some amazing things. They're going to have an otherworldly presence. Um, some of these things can be unexpected, contradictory, or even paradoxical for the current world of existence. And when you design a campaign, that's what it is. It is your X Files. It is your Fringe. It is all these TV shows, Supernatural. These are all great sources to go to for this otherworldly vision. Stranger Things. God, if you guys aren't on the Stranger Things season 2, you should be. I love how far out there it really is because the kids are bouncing between reality and not reality. And it's paradoxical. And the whole thing is paradoxical as it happens. Um, Here's how Steve Winter says to do it. A typical RPG outlines the following a certain pattern. Here's the situation, here's the missions, here's the monsters, go deal with it, right? It's simple. It's A to B to C gives you D. Not so with this type of setting, with the otherworldly visions. A plus B may equal X plus Z. So it's a real out there surrealistic feeling. I love this because he talks about Lovecraft being the master of the otherworldly tale. There are, I think, four distinct types of weird story. One expressing mood or feeling, another pictorial concept, the third a general situation, condition, legend, or intellectual concept, and the fourth a definite tableau or specific dramatic situation or climax. In other words, there are four ways to express otherworldliness through mood, odd images that you can give the players, sensory outputs that are affecting them, kind of making them feel weird, thoughts or ideas and conditions that are troubling or really surreal in their own type. Though, actual situations can often even defy the reality of the situation. So that's the thing you got to look at is when you are designing these type of things as a GM, you have to tap into the surreal. Um, uh, R.R. Geiger is a great one for visual scenery. So if you want to see some surrealistic scenery and settings, go to R.R. Geiger's work. Tremendous stuff. It literally chills you. That's where you get the Alien. Alien came off of R.R. Geiger's concepts and drawings, and Aliens and some of the others. A lot of the Cthulhu stuff gets pulled through his stuff. You have to get into the surreal, and surreal is just a so far off of reality that it makes you think you're taking an acid trip. That's the best way I can put it. Um, you can break rules with the paradoxical. So, a great example Pathfinder did a thing called Strange Aeons. Love the path. If you have not gotten it and converted it to your games, you frickin' need to. I'm not all over everything that they do, but I'm going to tell you this Strange Aeons has such a twisted between dreamscape and reality battle that it's unbelievable, where the characters are affected mentally throughout the whole game. And the horror concepts and the whole horror book on horror adventures has to deal with that. That's what you want to say. The surreal sometimes is horrific, it is mind boggling. You're painting pictures that your players are going to go, what? Where did he or she come up with this? That's the responses you should be getting out of your players as you go into these surreal sessions. You can describe what they hear, see, feel, sense, but leave it open for their interpretation. Don't interpret it for them. And Steve makes a great point on that. And I think you have to really look at that. So often as GMs, we want to interpret it for our players so it's easy. We spoon feed them. Don't. Let their minds shoot off into 5 directions. Because if you do that, you're going to begin to impact their sensory input, and they're going to start thinking out there. And let them go. Let them go way out into left field, because that's part of creating this otherworldly thing. Um, you can describe an alien planet, an alien planescape, a ghostly or kind of haunted planescape, and make them just really want to investigate it more. But at the same time, don't go overboard. The weird doesn't need to be commonplace, but it doesn't need to be so far out there that they can't even understand it. You want there to be a slight blending of the two, where the real and the norm go a little bit off left or right. And the players are like, what? Um, so uh, I love, and again, he talks about Gamma World. I love how they did the mutations in Gamma World. That was one of my favorite RPGs to run because it was out there, but it wasn't so strange that you couldn't get how they got there. It just weirded you out a lot. Um, you want to have, you want to expand the trappings of what the monsters, the creatures, the mind's eye is seeing as they hit this. Um, Maybe make something the wrong size that should be a certain size or shape. Um, Combine and divide 2 creatures that normally wouldn't be compatible together. Um, the octopus head and the human. And the Lithid, when it first came out, was mind blowing. And so you got to do that. Betray the senses. Make them hear things, see things. Their sensory, that they don't even trust their character's senses because it could be something surreal. It could be something strange. It could be a warping of the senses in that environment. You want to mess with them. Um, There was one that he mentions, again, Steve Winter mentions, called The Adventure, The Monolith from Beyond Space and Time. It's a one way journey into a realm where it's effectively impossible to look behind oneself, but the simple rule is so disoriented that the characters who wander more than a few steps apart may never find each other again. That's kind of the dreamscape world. Um, Ask the characters, what if the opposite were true? We navigate life on a foundation of automatic assumptions. Water flows downhill. Fire is hot. What if fire isn't hot? What if water doesn't run downhill? What if something is different? The adventure back in AD&D, White Plume Mountain, did that. The flowing of air, instead of across the ground, leans in this direction. Misdirected players to trust their senses and not trust them. Focus on the contradictions. We expect anything destructive to be loud and flashy. Consider movies where catapult stones explode into flames when they hit the turf. A 200-pound man shot with bullets weighing 8 grams is hurled 6 feet backwards. You got to mess with their whole concept of, wait a minute, that shouldn't happen. Why is that occurring? Type of thing. And look into other mythologies that are beyond our own. Um, you want to get into the strange, the macabre, the out there, the warped. I say this because really you make it interesting for the players when you do the things that are strange and unique. Don't make it something that they expect. A sound that comes out of a creature that shouldn't make it. Maybe there's an insect that talks to them, but that insect shouldn't talk. What is it? And it talks gibberish. Kind of like Alice in Wonderland. Alice in Wonderland's a great example of the surreal. It takes you places that shouldn't be what they are. It's a messing of the mind to a level that, I don't know, it warps you, it messes with you, it fills you with dread and with other types of things. Utilize setting. So, for instance, black lights, maybe with the lower dimmer lights, maybe the lighting of the room, maybe the music you play in the background. It all is kind of messing with the players. You don't want to freak them out. Don't go too far. You just want to alter perceptions, because that's what you're doing in the game. You're altering their perception. Remember Event Horizon? How many of you guys have watched Event Horizon? Raise your hands or comment under my comment thing of the video. I loved Event Horizon from the simple fact that it was, and forgive my language, a thorough mind fuck. It really screwed with you. When it came out, the stuff, because what they did is when they popped through the gate, it took them to a plane of hell that screwed them up thinking wise. They were screwed. And so they were doing things that were horrific to each other. It literally was as if they went to the plane of Abaddon and went out there, and it screwed with their senses. There was another one that came after that. There was another sci-fi one, and I forget the name of it, but it did kind of the same thing. It was a mind fuck. Um, we've seen the games that are kind of mind fucks. It's interesting when you get a mind fuck because you you don't come back easily from it. It makes you shudder a little bit to think about somebody altering a reality in such a way. Remember Alien, the movie Aliens, but you remember the Alien one that came up that was recent, and it just screwed with you. You remember the most recent one, Requiem? Interesting movie. If you haven't seen it, it is one of those mind benders. Um, that's the kind of stuff you're creating in your campaign. So just keep these things in mind. You're keeping with the messing of the mind because you really want to create that whole thing. Now, that said, design the macabre reality and blend it in. Come up with points where that reality point merges with the surreal, because you really want to do that. You want to have points where reality is reality, but where it's really not at other points. So they could either be awake or not. Remember Freddy Krueger in The Nightmare on Elm Street? Love that for a mind bender. Now, not so big. It doesn't mess with you as much. But then when they did it, the whole fact that you were in a dream, but felt like you were awake, was scary. That's the dreamscape. And if the dreamscape screws with you, then it screws with you in reality as well. I love that concept, because then you don't know, and it's just as dangerous whether you're really there or not. And you have to live it and act it as if you weren't, that you're awake, but you might not be. You just got to wake up, but nobody can wake you up. So now you're in this whole cycle of, oh my Lord, what's happening? And the things that happened to you in the dreamscape that Freddy could do were unbelievable. He was the master of the dreamscape. Um, Dream Warriors, perfect one. And you'll go back and look at some of these and go, oh my gosh, Eglin wasn't that good. Oh, but he was at that time. At that time, he messed with your mind in ways that nobody should be screwing with your mind. And it was really cool. Um, I love movies like that because they get to you. They're digging in and making you see things that aren't really there and experience things that really aren't happening, but it affects your character just as much as if you were awake and going with it. Those are the tools as a GM you got to become a master of or a mistress of. Really know how to play that in such a way that the characters don't know if it's dream or reality. And you don't tell them. Don't tell them. Let them sit there and play with the idea, and let it roll through their brain in such a way that you create really surreal events. Put a chart, write out surreal events, get a chart of look up surreal events and put them in the chart and how it will affect the character's perceptions, sleep, fatigue, other things that have to do with the character. Um, Resiliency, skills, feats. You want to mess with all of them and make the saving throws just hard enough that, yes, they can make them, but boy, it's almost out of reach. And the more that they're in that area, the worse it gets. There used to be for the Nintendo kind of I forget the name of the game, and I should remember the damn thing. It was a game based on H.P. Lovecraft, where you went between realities, and the more the creatures you saw, the more insane you got, the more you saw of the other reality. The more it slipped in, the less your sanity was. And after a while, you just finally snapped. You can bring the Call of Cthulhu sanity in and deal with the insanity. The horror adventures from Pathfinder can easily be converted, or so can Chaosium's rules to fit your system. And don't let your players argue their sanity that, oh no, this wouldn't scare them. Bullcrap. When things are screwing with your mind, I don't care how experienced you are at seeing them, they never quite go away. They live in your dreams, they haunt you, they cause severe chaos. That's what you want to really impart upon your players. And that's what you have to impart upon them, is that kind of mind warping and mind meshing. All right, so hope you love this GM tips. This is on the Surreal. Thank you again, Steve, for putting that into. And remember, this is part of Kobold's Press's Guide to Plots and Campaigns. If you want to know the pages, it's pages, I believe, 34 to 39. Let me see, make sure. 35 to 39. Otherworldly Visions. Take a look at it. Get the book. You can get the digital copy. I think it's like $9 or something. Get it. Look at this, because it'll give you some things that you can do that will really transform your campaign. Look into the dreamscape and how the dreamscape affects things. Write your own rules if you want, if you can't find them. Pathfinder has rules that are easily converted to any D20 system, so keep that in mind. But again, Vampire Requiem may not have that, GURPS may not have that, so you got to use other resources if they haven't given it to you to do this. Thanks again, folks. I really appreciate you guys sticking with me with GM tips. Love you guys to death. And again, we'll see you soon.